Welcome to PEPtalks, a patient experience podcast telling stories of connection and care. Each month, we'll introduce you to some of the incredible people at Moffitt Cancer Center and share their amazing efforts that make Moffitt a place of hope and healing. In this heartfelt episode of PEPtalks, Jason Filippini, chaplain at Moffitt Cancer Center, shares what it means to bring compassion, presence, and humanity into every patient interaction. Drawing from his years serving in Moffitt's ICU, Jason reflects on the sacred privilege of walking alongside patients and families in their most vulnerable moments. Through his thoughtful insights on empathy, healing, and self-care, Jason reminds us that while cure isn't always possible, healing always is. His words invite us to slow down, listen deeply, and rediscover the quiet power of simply saying yes to what's possible.
So I'm Jason Filippini. I am privileged to be one of the staff chaplains here at Moffitt Cancer Center, Magnolia campus. There's 4 of us here who cover the inpatient section of this hospital. I've worked at Moffitt for almost 8 years. I had always known that I had wanted to work in oncology. I had always known that I wanted to work at Moffitt. It was a draw into this. I'm the chaplain in the ICU, PCU here, which is where I spend, I would say, a predominant amount of my time. You know, you can give a soundbite as far as what a chaplain is. The sales pitch that I give to all of my patients starts from the idea that, and this is not to disparage anything that we do, being in here sucks. It does. This is the most beautiful place. Nobody wants you. If we cured this disease tomorrow and we all had to find new jobs, nobody would complain. We're not there yet. We're not there yet. So it's a privilege to get to do this work. And just like our doctors and nurses and all of our medical teams are looking at all of the functions of the body, and we've got a team for everything. We have these amazing professionals. But being in here taxes the mind and it taxes the spirit. However you connect to that, whatever that means for you. And spiritual suffering is not religious suffering. It can be. That Venn diagram overlaps. So while chaplains are a representative of the spiritual and the religious, our privilege is to be able to check in on those parts of the journey just like our doctors are checking in on the physical. So as a chaplain, my privilege is to be able to connect people to those healing modalities. We know, all of us know, that cure isn't always possible. When we say cure, we think of cure of the body, right? Getting rid of this disease. But healing always is. And sometimes that healing is just as important of the mind and of the spirit as it is the body for patients and their families on this journey. So, and yes, we have broad theological training, and yes, we have counseling training, and yes, we go through residency. We don't just ruck up off the street and start talking to people. And that's a privilege to be able to do that work and be invited into the space. My colleague Laura here refers to it as being the intimate stranger. It's as humbling as it is uplifting to be invited into that environment by our patients. I lost my mom in '97, so to cancer. She was a patient at Sloan Kettering in New York. So I didn't realize that now, that's why I'm doing this. But you trace the steps backwards, you're like, oh, there it is. But I think it definitely set the tone, for me, and I can trace where I'm at now back to that. As a kind of a linchpin moment for sure, a tipping point. Patients and families I think they're often shocked by the ways that Moffitt finds a way to say yes rather than why we have to say no. Yes, protocols are in place for a reason. There's a myriad of reasons, from safety to, decorum to protocol to appropriateness to, anything in between. You have to have guardrails and structure. And sometimes we get to bend those, push them, broaden them, I've been fortunate to attend a wedding in the ICU where the patient's dog was the ring bearer. We had a cow here last week. Just things like that. One of my favorite things is to be able to really actively listen to someone's anxiety or something that they've presented, and then be able to be like, well, actually, maybe we can do something about that. Something they thought was hopeless. We've had patients on, literally on comfort measures only, that we've been able to, take out and have the sunshine hit their face for one last time. And, that's powerful to be part of that healing, not cure, but healing. So I was working on a Sunday. I'm not normally here on a Sunday. Had never met this patient and this family before, and was rounding in the ICU, and encountered this patient, a young woman, 21 at the time, actually turned 22 during her stay with us. And things were not going well. And family was at bedside, her mom, her dad, her aunt, a couple of other relatives, a significant other, very, very well aware that this was not going well. And in fact, there was a large chance that when I talked to them first, on this first day, she was not coming out of the hospital. She was most likely going to die here in our ICU. So I just kind of, as pleasant as I could, as lighthearted as I could, as open as I could, walked into the patient's room and, met the family. Nursing stepped into the room to do some procedure, and so we all kind of stepped out of the room. And I'm in the area outside the room with her parents and her aunt. And Dad, he says to me, "Look, I need you to not BS me. Have you been sent here because it's worse than they're telling us?" No, that wouldn't come from me. I'm just part of your care team, part of this whole situation. We know how difficult it is. We know how there's these many factors, and I'm here to walk with you on that part of your journey. So we talked through that. I said, they live 20 minutes away. Is there stuff we can bring from home? Is there, a blanket? Is there a stuffed animal? Is there, does she have a dog? Does she have, is there something that, her favorite XYZ, pajamas, anything that can be comforting and soothing and human in that moment. And her aunt says, I don't know if there's anything to be done about this. And then kind of tells me the story of this patient, that she is a teaching major at USF, and the only thing standing between her and her graduation was her practicum. So she had completed all of her classes. She was just kind of waiting for this last kind of check mark. This kind of triggered Mom in that moment. We had been kind of calm, and this realization that she had always wanted to be a teacher, and they had a story behind why she wanted to be a teacher. And it was just like, it was this incredible thing that had been robbed from her. So I said to her aunt, I said, well, listen, here's what you should do. Contact her advisor. I got back to my desk, and I'm charting all my visits from the afternoon, and it just didn't sit. It just didn't sit with me. So I got on the USF website. I found the dean of her school, and just shot an email and, explained kind of everything that I've shared. And I said, listen, I don't know what the possibility is here. I basically wanted them, to know that there was kind of a bit at stake here. And this is on a Sunday. Remember, this is middle of the day on a Sunday. So I was just expecting to kind of fire that off and into the universe, I guess. And the dean wrote me back immediately, like literally while I was sitting there on a Sunday, like amazed at the story, and she starts working on her end, and she's like, this isn't my call, but I'm escalating this right now to the dean of the college, to the academic dean of the college, and like jumped on it immediately. And suddenly it's this email chain of 5 different people that this was going to happen. So I kind of got to go back to the family, at the end of the Sunday shift and say to them, hey, I followed through on this. I didn't feel right just leaving it with you to follow up. So I sent some emails and this is where we're at. And just at this point, we weren't sure it was going to happen. So we didn't want to tell the patient anything. Because we didn't want to, open that up. Things progressed over the next couple of days, both on the USF side and on the medical side. And we hit a window where we were going to be able to actually get her home. They only lived 20 minutes away, so we were making sure she was stable enough to actually get her out of the ICU, because she did not want to pass in our ICU. She wanted to pass it at home. She had some final bucket lists. I want to have this for the last time. And the big one, which I think may have even been more important to her than the graduating, which by the way, none of this had come from her originally, was she just wanted to have a beer with her dad. She had turned 21 and had just been sick and forever. So, and I can confirm that happened, which is awesome. And I was gonna ask her mom, it's like, should we tell her? Should we tell her that this is that USF is going to do this? And the dean had actually called them, so they got back to the family. Not only were they going to do it, they were going to go to her house with full regalia and graduate her. So I knew that USF was going there on Thursday. So I called her mom on Friday to check in and see, how everything went. And for whatever reason, whatever awareness, I did not start the phone call with, how did everything go yesterday? Because that would have been a horrible mistake. So she passed Tuesday evening. So she got to have beer with her dad. And her mom said that she had like 50 plus people that have come to visit her at the house, and like friends and family. She said it was beautiful chaos. She said it was wonderful, and it was, as it should be. She was sorting photos for her memorial when I spoke to her on the phone. But she told me that USF was still coming through. They were still going to deliver it, and it would be her diploma would be on display. Yeah, they'd have it at her funeral at the memorial. I don't think you can do this work without. I don't think you can do this work well without being empathetic. I just don't. It's utterly impossible. And when I say this work, I mean healthcare in general, but certainly oncology. I can't tell you the times I've held a team member in the Pyxis, in ICU. I can't tell you how many times that's happened. Been crushed on the floor with providers. It's like. You cannot do this work at this level of true empathy, true compassion, without it being emotional, and without carrying somebody with you. Cliche as it is, you cannot pour from an empty cup. That's true. The experience that I offer to patients, to families, to staff members, to anybody who's connected to any type of work like this, is that the self-care has to be intentional. It can't be a distraction. If you go home and you're watching TV for hours on end, numb, that is not uplifting. That does not fill your cup. It fills time. Whatever it is, if I'm going for a walk, then this is why I'm going for a walk. I'm not just spacely wandering, out in the universe. So whatever you do, whether that's leaning into prayer, whether that's leaning into your faith, whether that is a sport, whether that is, intentional time with family, whether that is a good meal, whether that is going home and changing your clothes and taking a shower at the end of the day, you learn real quick how some of the simple joys of our existence can be healing. It has to be intentional. It has to be intentional. You have to engage with it. Personally, music has been a huge thing throughout my life. So listening to music, my spirituality, leaning into my spirituality, the practice of my spirit. I will share that not all chaplains are Christian. So, and I don't fit into that box. We serve everybody here. We're blessed and fortunate and privileged to serve everybody across all denominations or no denominations. If I were to impart anything to team members here, find a way to say yes. When it comes down to it, we're here to take care of our patients and families. And if there's a way to do that, then we do that. Ask. Yeah, the answer might be no, right? But way better to have that happen than, I wish we should have, or, if I had only asked about that. Or I had a patient who was involved in Major League Baseball for many years. And, at an actual, working for a baseball organization. So we bonded a little bit about the Yankees and the history of baseball. This was a much older gentleman. And just in the middle of this conversation, he made this comment about the fact that we don't have Pepsi products here. And that he's like, I'm stuck drinking Coke. I was like, and he tells me this beautiful story about, going to the ballpark and, this, Pepsi and a hot dog, and how it was just part of his youth, and just there's, and he goes on this whole thing about an ice cold Pepsi, and it doesn't taste the same as an ice cold Coke, and I can immediately tell the difference. So I brought him a Pepsi, and it was a day later, and, you want to watch a grown man on his in the last chapter of his book, as I would say, brought to tears by a Pepsi. It's just and part of it's, I'm laughing because part of it's funny because it's so just simple. But man, if you just listen, people will tell you how to connect with them. It's simple as that, taking a patient on CMO out into the sun, having a cow here, bringing, having a dog be officiating in a wedding, helping somebody graduate from USF. It's all the same. It's all the same. It's listening to what's on the hearts of our patients and realizing that you have an opportunity to be, some small, part of somebody's healing journey. Whether they ever remember your name, they remember what you do. Right? Suddenly, it's not the Pepsi. Suddenly, it's not, the chaplain. Suddenly, it's not the ICU. It's Moffitt.
Thanks so much for tuning in. Don't miss out on new episodes of Pep Talks dropping every second Friday of the month on all streaming platforms. Catch all of our inspiring stories at www.moffitt.org/peptalks. See you next time.